Another thing that I do, my main job now, is when I first started investing in short-term rentals in these regional drivable vacation rental markets, I found that there were no real estate agents that could really answer my questions about return on investment or occupancy rate or how to manage these things. So I became that agent. Now I am the top agent in the Smokies. I've got a team that's performing really well in the Florida Panhandle and also in Gulf Shores, Alabama. We will be expanding into North Georgia and the North Carolina beaches and the North Carolina side of the Smokies in the next 6 months. And what we do is we help investors who are interested in buying short-term rentals in these markets. Not only do we help you acquire them, but especially for first-time Airbnb investors, we have a whole back-end program that if you choose to use us as your agents, we will teach you how to set up your Airbnb and VRBO listings, how to set up your channel managers and automation tools so that you can manage from wherever you are in the country. And we also get you in touch with local vendors, cleaners, handymen, everybody that you need to be able to manage your short-term rental in any of our markets from wherever you are. So we specialize in solely helping investors acquire more short-term rental properties. As far as coronavirus, so I know we're talking about thriving in 2020. I know my markets are kind of different from yours in that you guys actually have industry and jobs other than tourism in Miami, whereas in the markets that I'm in, there's really no industry other than tourism. So coronavirus was particularly scary for us when it first started getting serious because we thought, oh my God, nobody's going to go on vacation anymore. And, metro markets, I metro market just because the regulations make me very nervous and I don't have to worry about regulations in true vacation markets like that. But I started to really question my decisions about not having invested in metro markets because you guys have the flexibility to either switch it to a long-term or rent to traveling nurses or things like that. Whereas I, just have to have the cash reserves. So what I wanted to share with you guys today, and I'm not going to talk at you for the whole 30 minutes. I like to get feedback and kind of have a conversation with everybody about what everybody's doing. But what I wanted to share with you is my kind of banking hack for building up cash reserves without having to, pay a lot of attention to, getting on your online banking and moving money around. So when coronavirus hit, a lot of my clients and investors that I knew within the first 2 or 3 weeks of the shutdown were already, these are people that I had looked up to as investors previously, and people that were living solely, their sole stream of income is short-term rentals. These people were already doing the forbearance and filing for the small business help and all that within 2 or 3 weeks. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've looked up to these people. They don't have any kind of a safety net. It's only been 2 weeks and they're already having to look into all this mortgage forbearance and things like that. So I personally did not, because I'm a big believer in cash reserves. And I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about how I set up my banking to not have to mess around with it too much to build up my cash reserves. So I personally recommend to my clients to have a minimum of 3 months of expenses worth of cash reserves. Ideally, you'd have 6 months, but I understand when we're all trying to pick up more deals that you don't want to have that much money sitting there not doing anything for you. So I give a little leeway with 3 months. But what I do, so I found this online bank called Relay Financial. And for each of my streams of income, I set up several different bank accounts depending on what it is. So for my short-term rentals, I have the account that your Airbnb and VRBO deposits hit. And then I found this really cool app called Astra. And what Astra does is you can set it up to whenever a deposit hits your account, you can set it up to pull a certain percentage into a bunch of different accounts. So historically, I used to be with Bank of America. They couldn't really do that. They could only do it if every paycheck was the same amount. And they could say, okay, well, $50 every time will go to this other account. But Astra, I can set it up with percentages. So what I do is I have it set up to automatically set aside a certain percentage into another account for taxes, set aside a certain percentage into another account for CapEx and cash reserves. So I set aside, when I first start a new Airbnb, I start out by setting aside 20% of every deposit that hits my account into my cash reserves account so that I can't see it, I can't touch it. It's there for a rainy day like coronavirus. And that has been so helpful to just go ahead and have everything separated out automatically with and automated that way, because historically I'd have to go into my Bank of America and say, okay, well, I need to move this much money here and this much money here. But as you know, when you're working with short-term rentals, automation is key for scaling your management. So automating your bank and your different accounts for your cash reserves is super helpful also. So I just wanted to share that hack with you guys about cash reserves so that you too can maybe set that up and get your cash reserves in a place where you can be comfortable now that things are kind of cooling down with coronavirus. Or I mean, maybe not in South Florida. I'm in Northwest Florida right now. We don't have a lot of cases here, but as you guys are bouncing back, it's really important that you get those cash reserves in place for obvious reasons. So I'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Doesn't have to be about banking hacks or anything like that, but any questions that you have about the markets that I'm in or anything like that, I'd also love to hear about you guys' experience so far this year down in Miami. So just, who wants to go first?
Avery, I'm super interested in knowing how the experience throughout coronavirus or even now was over there in the Smoky Mountains or any other markets that you were in, and how do you see it moving forward? How do you see things behaving?
So for us, the three markets that we're in all behave very similar because, like I mentioned, they're all true drivable vacation markets. When the shutdowns first started, our calendars were wiped clean for the end of March, pretty much all of April. And so we were like, all right, well, here it comes. And luckily, though, we did have just enough bookings come in from people who live in drivable big cities like Atlanta or Charlotte, who live in small condos, who thought, oh, well, I'm going to have to be working from home for a month and I live in this small condo. I'll come rent your cabin in the Smokies or your beach house for a week or two and work remotely from there. So we had just enough of those kinds of bookings, with the exception of the Florida house, because obviously, the governor shut down the short-term rentals, that we broke even and didn't have to dip into the cash reserves. Had it lasted longer, I'm sure we would have. And luckily, we had those in place. But May 1st, as things started to open back up, and to backtrack a little bit, so in the Smokies, the main attraction is the Smoky Mountain National Park, and that was shut down. So it's the equivalent of the beaches being shut down. So it was very scary for that month and a half. But then once everything started opening back up, once the governor opened the beaches up in Northwest Florida too, the tourists in all three markets, they came back, I would say, with a vengeance. We're getting higher prices per night than we've ever seen, even on Christmas and New Year's. Our beach season extended much further into the fall than it normally does. It normally tapers off around October, and we stayed booked pretty solid until December 1st. And I think that's because people are going to school remotely, working remotely. So, they rent the beach house and go to work, go to school online, and then go to the beach afterwards. So I think that our markets have bounced back because of the drivability and the affordability. It's not a super expensive vacation. So, maybe this year people are not flying to Aspen because they don't want to get on a plane and get breathed on and, be in a confined space with a lot of people they don't know, but they've got no problem taking an 8-hour drive trip to the Smokies for the weekend and not spending, all the money on airlines and lift tickets and things like that. And same thing with the Alabama Gulf Coast and with the panhandle of Florida. is that, maybe people aren't flying to Mexico for their beach vacation this year, but they will certainly take a 5 to 8 hour drive trip down to the Gulf Coast. So we've been really lucky with the way coronavirus has affected us. It is not at all what I expected when all of this started, but it's been a really eye-opening experience, as I'm sure it has for you guys too, just to see what a worst case scenario looks like. And now when people ask me, when maybe new Airbnb investors ask what happens in a worst case scenario, I can tell them exactly what happens. So I don't know if you guys have had the same experience in Miami. I don't have a lot of experience or really know any investors in Miami, so I'm super interested to hear how it's been for you guys as well.
We've had the same, I think, driving type of guests. From New York, a lot of people, that's true. And I think even more so now, it's going to happen even more because, the Florida governor said we're not closing by any means. However, New York is. So I think that's a bright side to our winter season. As far as throughout the whole pandemic, we had steady, but not like before. So like we were able to cover expenses, break even, profits, obviously not like before, but they were there. And that's the important part, we didn't really have to come out of pocket. How's been your experience?
Same here. We've been kind of, I've never had to shut or bring in like full-time tenants or anything like that. I've been lucky that my places have been more like people from upstate or from up north wanted to stay, like to get away from the cities that were supposed to be more, impacted by the coronavirus. But yeah, no, I was lucky. I think it was God sent because I'm really lucky.
Absolutely, the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've hung on. Let's say that we're hanging on there, and it's improved, it's gotten better, and obviously bookings now are just like very, very short notice. They're not in advance at all. I don't know if that's your experience as well, and of course the cancellation policies are very important right now. The more flexibility, the better, usually for the guests. And do you have that experience as well, Avery? Are your bookings last minute?
Our bookings in the Smokies are generally kind of last minute compared to beach markets in general. I would say even, during the best of times, it's a 5-week or less lead time. But our Florida place, it has gotten a few super last minute November bookings. So I would say, yeah, in Florida, we've had a similar experience.
I hear you. Anybody from the virtual Zoom want to share their experience?
I actually have more of a question, Sebastian, if that's okay, for Avery.
Sure.
This is Jean Heisch, by the way.
Hey,
my question is, given the sheltering in place, you only stay with those, your immediate family, and don't hold big parties. Have you found that when people book your place in the Smokies or in Florida, are they booking like your entire 5-bedroom apartment, or not apartment, house, or are they looking for the smaller places? Because I know that you also manage other people's places.
So they're booking the whole big ones, and I don't know if that's because all of the areas I invest in are super, super red areas, and people just kind of don't care about the shutdowns, and there's a lot of anti-maskers going on. And so I don't know if it's just that the people who visit the places that I invest in just don't care, but they're booking, and it's none of my business if they're breaking the rules or not. I'll take their money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think this is a good question for you, Avery. What are the different strategies to get a loan when your loan to income ratio is maxed out?
So at that point, a commercial loan is going to be the way to go. It can be a little bit difficult to get local banks and credit unions to do commercial loans on short-term rentals. It can definitely be done, but you're just going to have to call a lot of them. There are 2 big national commercial loan companies that maybe you guys are familiar with, maybe not. One of them is called Vizio. Here, I'll type it so you can look it up. And the other one is Host Financial. Host Financial, you'll probably have a better shot because obviously by the name, it's geared towards short-term rentals, but both of those will, they, rather than getting into your own DTI and your own income and all that, they base everything based off of what the property will make. So I would give those two a try and see what you come up with.
Awesome. I see Jennifer pretty active with the questions. I appreciate it. As far as licenses needed to manage short-term rentals in Miami, we manage a few in Miami. They narrowed it down, of course. We've let some go, the not the greatest performers, and we haven't had to use a license. We sometimes co-host the listings from direct owners themselves. I saw you had some other questions. Let's see. Do you manage your own properties or sublease is acceptable in Miami? It really depends on your business objective, what your goals are. I usually don't recommend Airbnb arbitrage or subleasing just because there's so much downside, there's so much risk to it, and it's something like, you know, what we're going through right now, which is obviously a shock to everyone. No one thought this was going to happen. You're still left with that rent, and you may be in debt, and then all your profits are going to go there. Or, you know, occupancy may go down so far to the point that you're only going to be profiting a couple $100. Yes, in high season, it's definitely worthwhile, but I see the risk, the downside, too far down. You know, it's too much. You may lose your furniture, your entire 3 months investment in order to, and then compared to the upside. The upside is only on the high season, and then you have a lot of risk involved. Let's see if she has more questions. You guys have a question?
Yeah, we have a question.
Please go ahead.
What kind of support would you give to investors who want to get in your areas?
Like the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah, like you know, North Carolina, like in the Asheville area or the Smoky Mountains, etc. Here.
Like what kind of services do you provide?
Oh, sorry, it was kind of breaking up.
No, we want to know what kind of service you provide.
Okay. So if you guys want to invest in any of the markets that I'm in, Smoky Mountains, Panhandle of Florida, Gulf Shores, Alabama, what we do is we will get you, I mean, you guys obviously already know how to manage an Airbnb if you own them, but we will get you cleaners, handymen, you know, anybody that you need to be able to manage a short-term rental in the Smoky Mountains from Miami. We will get you hooked up so that by the time you close with us, you're ready to just turn the key and make money. And Asheville, so Asheville's on the North Carolina side. We're on the Tennessee side. We will be on the North Carolina side by probably Q2 of next year. Asheville has a lot of very strict regulations, and they don't have quite the return on investment on the North Carolina side as we do on the Tennessee side. The property taxes in Tennessee are minimal. Like on an average 2-bedroom, they're going to be less than $1,000 a year. So the property taxes on the Tennessee side that's a really, really big benefit to investing on the Tennessee side. I've got tons of off-market properties too on the Tennessee side. So it's super competitive to make offers on MLS properties on the Tennessee side right now. It's like crazy. We had one last week that was it was $450,000. It had 55 offers on it. So yeah, it was nuts. So super competitive, and it's all investors. All of that is investor driven because the numbers make so much sense. The Panhandle of Florida and Gulf Shores in Alabama are, I would say, they're kind of like what the Smokies were 4 or 5 years ago, where the numbers make a lot of sense, but they're not as discovered and overrun by investors yet. So you can still actually negotiate a purchase price in those markets, and you just have a little bit more breathing room to make offers and do some analysis instead of just having to rush off and offer over asking on everything just because it hit the market.
Is that where you get most of your properties from, the MLS?
It just depends. So I've got a developer who I work with who I list most of his properties off market. Like we did about 30 off market this past month in the Smokies. But I mean, I did also just buy one right off the MLS myself last month also. So things do pop up often just because this is not a market where just because it hits the MLS means it's a bad deal. It's just that there's a lot of very old school agents in the Smokies that, they've been doing it for 30, 40 years and they're just not keeping up with technology, and it just doesn't occur to them to do things off market to add value that way. So then there's also the new clear cooperation laws that if there's any real estate agents in this room, then you understand those, where the National Association of Realtors just passed a law that said once we as agents send out an off-market property anywhere outside of our own office, so whether that's an email blast or a social media post, it has to be on the MLS within 2 business days or 48 hours or 1 business day, whichever is shorter. So that's kind of, cut a leg off as far as doing a lot of off-market business, but we still do quite a bit. So the Smokies are competitive, but they're still a really great place to invest.
I have come across some people that they sell lots of land to build like bungalows or something, cabins, wood cabins cheaply. So what do you think about it? Would that be, I mean, I know it would depend on the locations, but is that something Airbnb guests are, I don't know, is it desirable for them?
Yeah, so it just depends on what it is you're trying to do. So with building cabins, the thing that trips people up in this market is that since everything is kind of on the side of a mountain, you can get $200,000 or $300,000 into building and have only spent money on grading and retaining walls and not even have gotten into the actual structure of the cabin yet. So building can be a little more expensive if you're not experienced in that area, if you're not working with a developer who does it often. As far as like tiny homes, you have to have basically trailer park zoning in order for that to be allowed if they have wheels on them. And if they don't have wheels on them, you just have to check with the county because there are minimum square footage requirements and for what you can have. And you do also, even if they don't have wheels on them, you have to have some kind of special commercial campground zoning to be allowed to do it. So there's a lot of red tape. It's a cool idea. I haven't seen too many people execute it other than just having like one tiny home on their property.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Do you guys have any more questions? You guys over here? Hey, good evening, Angela. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Process.
It's a little process, huh?
Okay, cool. Do you have questions? How's your experience been through the pandemic and now, and what do you see moving forward?
So my experience, my on there, yeah. So my Airbnb down in Miami. Thank you. My experience down in Miami, I have a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom property, and I do individual room rentals. So I saw the drop off right around March, like everybody else did, March, April, when everything kind of went to crap with the whole pandemic. And my strategy when I got down to Miami last year was already to hit the affordable part of Airbnb, which was doing the room rentals. So I'm only charging $50, $65 a night, and I actually didn't see any drop off with reservations. I was able to stay pretty much consistent because one thing that the coronavirus did do was make it so everybody needed an affordable stay now. That since everybody was losing their jobs and unemployment, spending as least amount of possible was a priority for people. So my experience was a little bit more hectic because I had to keep flipping sheets every day. Because I had a lot of 2-3 day reservations, and it was, it was pretty much like that throughout, from about March all the way up until June, July. And it's still going now. I think right now I still have people in my property right now that's fully booked out. Some of them are, well, no, none of them are here, but yeah. So now just looking forward to the spike that comes back. Whenever all of these things are over and things start to get back into the normal rhythm, I'm looking forward to just being a part of that wave of people that come back to South Florida. Yeah,
Awesome. Okay. Okay. If no one else has any questions, let's see. Can you check on the group chat? Thank you.
I saw the video.
Okay. Come on, let's see if any more questions. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Okay. What could be done to get a higher nightly rate as compared to the competition? What would you take beyond that, Avery?
So we use Beyond Pricing as a pricing manager. So I recommend using them or any of the pricing managers, just depending on which one works best for you. We've got some that we used to manually price, and we were completely happy with the numbers that we're doing. But since we started using Beyond Pricing, we're getting like a 15% more overall on gross annual income. So that's quite a bit. Like, we've got a little studio cabin that we never got more than 125, 130 a night for. And Beyond Pricing put it at like 250 for some event that we didn't even know was going on. It dynamically prices, for those of you who don't know, dynamically prices based on your competition in the area or any potential holidays or events coming up. We got $250 a night for a little studio cabin. That's like twice what we've ever gotten, and we never would have priced it that high had we been manually pricing. So I really recommend using a pricing manager to optimize your pricing.
Awesome. There's pricing analytics tools like that one. There's a few more. In our experience, what we've done is gather comparable properties and analyze the entire market with Airbnb and check what's the average daily rate around the market for similar properties. And we also emphasize obviously on the holidays and special events happening in Miami. Obviously, there's not a lot of that right now. So we just manage a lot of it right now based on demand and based on the future bookings that we have. Yeah. I think we have another question from the audience here. Does anybody have experience doing short-term rentals on an RV or travel trailer? If so, how is it? Will you recommend it? I have no experience, so I'm with that, so I am not very sure. With that.
And RVs, no.
And Avery said that she doesn't, right? You don't.
I don't know. I actually did just buy an RV, so if anybody knows, let me know. I bought it to be able to bounce around through to all my markets, and it was in case anybody else wants to buy one. My CPA was able to put it as like an 80% write-off as a mobile office. So that's pretty sweet.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great. Do we have any more questions here in the audience?
Yeah.
The live audience?
Avery, I had a question. Your current strategy now for a apartment building, how are you getting funding for that?
So we are going to just independently finance it ourselves. We're not going for like a 50 unit or anything. I mean, we're talking like an 8 to maybe a 30 unit, probably in the Panhandle or South Alabama. So we're just kind of waiting for the right one. And we're also going to wait until we can sell our last Nashville property and 1031 it. And that lease is up in July, and we'll have about 150 extra in equity to add to our down payment on an apartment building. So just keeping an eye out until then. So if anybody hears of any, hit me up.
Awesome. And is that located near the beach or any any perks, any amenities like that for the property?
No, as long as it cash flows, it'll be a long-term rental. So, the criteria will be different than what they are for my short terms.
I hear you. Yeah. If that's a long-term rental, that's the case. You specific. Okay, we have one here from Zoom from Francine. Do you use a specific platform so all the bookings are in one place? Yeah, we personally use 365 Villas, and it's been pretty effective. It syncs all the calendars from all the major portals, Booking.com, Airbnb, of course the RBO, and HomeAway, and then there's also some other smaller booking portals that it syncs with, and it helps us get on many more portals as well that we didn't even know about. Do you use a central channel manager?
We do. We use your porter.
Your porter. Oh, cool. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, we used to use IGMS, but somebody recommended your porter, and we tried it, and it just it plays nicer with all the other apps that we're synced to. So it's been pretty good. It's pretty cost effective too. You should check it out.
Nice. What's the cost on that one?
I don't exactly know off the top of my head. I just remember back when we were looking, being like, oh, this is a lot cheaper than IGMS. Great.
Yeah.
Hey, Avery, it's $7 per listing.
Thanks, Joel. Told you it was cheap.
Yeah, I use one. I use a channel manager called Octarate. It's actually a Australia-based one. It's $34 a month. They have integrations with about over 300 different listing platforms, including Airbnb Booking, Agoda, Flipkey, all of those. So it works pretty well and has a lot of integrations. I like it a lot. I learned about it last year, and it's been kind of carrying me in terms of preventing double bookings and whatnot. So
and more exposure.
Yeah, and more exposure too, right? And they have a bunch of integrations where you can get your own full website out of it. You can also sync your calendars up, and there's a lot of different interactions that you can do.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so there's many out there to use. Yeah.
Use Spiffins, let's see, one place. There are more places advertised. That's a good question for you. So we have another question here, and I think it's a great question for Dion from the Zoom audience. And thank you guys for engaging with us so well. It's great to have audiences at two different sites. So the question is, anyone getting direct bookings? If so, are you advertising, and where? Facebook and such? I'll go first because mine's is short. We do get direct bookings from some repeat guests, which is neat, and 365 Villas has a feature where we can take payment, and we can also do a credit card hold. It's for a max of 7 days, but it's very helpful. And some referrals sometimes, especially from my friends in real estate, in the brokerage and realtors, they have their clients and they want to stay here either for the winter. And
with that, is it worth the risk though, in regards to not having liability insurance on the platform?
Yeah.
So that case.
That's what we do, a security deposit always.
Okay.
Depending on the property, you raise it or lower it, depending on how expensive the property is. And there are some, more often than not, either they're repeat guests or they're referred by somebody that we know in common. Right. So, I would expect I would expect them to behave well.
Yeah, there's a trust factor already in place. It's somebody referred.
There you go. And Dion's experience is a little different. By the way, Dion, he's developing, he's running 420 BNB, which is an alternative booking service, and we're gonna see a little bit more detail once we're done. Mm-hmm. But yeah, how do you get direct bookings?
So one of the things that I got into in 2016 is, since I ran private room rentals, I had the problem of trying to get guests to stay with each other, because since I had two different rooms, I had two different Airbnb guests that didn't know each other, right?
Yeah.
So what I did is I wanted to create a YouTube video through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, and I pretty much recorded all of my guest experiences and uploaded them to YouTube, so that when people came to my Airbnb listing, in my description, I I actually put in the description that they could check my guest experience videos. So one of the things that I wanted to do was show that you can have a cool, fun experience while also staying with another stranger, including me, because even though I'm on the Airbnb platform, they don't know me. So by watching the video before they were able to book, I was able to get a lot of direct bookings from just YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, and all of the social media platforms, because people would hit me up after they saw my videos. So even through Airbnb, it was good, but once I started to develop content, I actually got bookings from YouTube as well. And then I got bookings from Snapchat, and then I got bookings from Facebook, and then also Instagram. And I want to say that over the last 4 years, probably a good 30% of my bookings have just come from direct bookings. Now, from what my man said here, with the liability, I live with my guests. So it was a little bit easier for me to manage the trouble, because I didn't have to deal with too much, because I was the liaison between the two guests that were staying there.
Yeah.
So I was able to avoid a lot of problems, and then I had a lot of things for guests to do. I had Bluetooth speakers. I also had video games. I had, I took my guests out to South Beach, to a lot of different places, and it was like your own personal tour guide experience is what I was able to provide. And it alleviated most of the problems for me. Terms to my 420 friendly thing. So in 2016, when I put 420 friendly on my listing, for almost 2 years straight, I never missed a booking.
Okay.
And that's been my experience with that, because every time I would have a guest come right off the plane, first thing that they would ask me is it okay if I can consume here? And ever since then, it's just been rocking. And now we're here 4 years later, trying to expand on that and open a new level of hospitality to South Florida, which doesn't exist yet. I know if anybody's familiar with Colorado, they have bed and breakfast up there.
Oh, nice.
And
Colorado native, right?
How interesting.
Yeah. For real? Yeah. So you know about it. Yeah. So we wanna bring the same level of service that Colorado has, but to South Florida, and then eventually all over the United States.
Interesting.
So
very cool.
It's been an interesting.
How do you process payments when you have a direct booking?
What do you say?
How do you process payments?
So Cash App. Cash App is king for people below 35. That's
pretty much your niche and your audience too.
Yeah, probably 90% of the payments that I collect are through Cash App, if it's not through Airbnb. I do have rentals insurance. So if things do get lost or things, I have a way to replace them. So
yeah,
I don't necessarily worry about the liability too much, because I'm there with my guests too. And security deposits are something that I take too. I just charge $100 though.
Interesting.
And then give it back to them if they don't mess up.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gene posted a really interesting question there, and I'm actually very excited about it. I read a really interesting article. I'm happy to share with you guys. It's called Airbnb, like Airbnb Baller or something like that, and it's all about the IPO, and it gives you all the details and compares Airbnb to other companies. And in essence, what the article says is that Airbnb right now, they laid off so much of their staff, so they're trimmed, they're slim, and so they're ready for launching, to take off once COVID subsides. So they're in great shape, and then they're gonna have an injection of about $3 billion. So I don't know if you guys saw it in November 16, before yesterday, we received an email for all us hosts for the direct share program. And that's super interesting, because it will get the shares at the exact price that they come out to the market, which is a real high upside. We'll get it before the public. How do you guys feel? How do you feel about this, Avery?
I'm not a gigantic stock person, so I'm probably going to skip it and let you guys do that. But I am going to watch it pretty closely, though, because it is interesting to see what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, well, Airbnb's changed my life, so I definitely will be investing. Definitely, I might throw everything in there. Hopefully, just because I'm Airbnb brought a level of hospitality that I never thought could exist, especially when it comes to renting through your own home. And I found that that's been the greatest change in the last 4 years of my life. So just because it affects me that deeply, I'm going to be heavily investing, and so is most of my team as well. So we're going to be definitely a part of that Airbnb opening whenever it does, which I'm thinking is the first week of December, I think they said.
I think sometime in December.
Yeah, sometime in December. So definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully I become a millionaire overnight. We'll see.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Since a lot of us have been using Airbnb.
Come into the camera.
Yes, please.
Man, everybody see you.
I was wondering, when they offered the fund for the people that got hurt badly early on, how many people here got any money back from Airbnb?
I did, but it was like,
No.
not even,
Not
it
even.
was not even worth even discussing. It was that
You know,
minimal. That insults
I
me.
met somebody that lost $40,000
Wow.
In
in
bookings.
this period of time, and they got a check back from Airbnb for $60.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I got like 300 something, which to me still was like nothing.
Were they superheroes?
Huh?
Were they superheroes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't talk to me when I tried to communicate
Right.
with Airbnb. I couldn't even get through during that time. They
Didn't they-
didn't acknowledge.
Did they create a fund for $250 million?
Yes.
Isn't that what they said it?
I was wondering how many people got money back, because we all got hurt, March, April, May,
Right.
a lot, so.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, when you're running a company that massive with 7 million listings, then, I have no idea.
Compared to your bookings, how much did you get back?
So from the bookings that I lost, it was about 11,000. That's how much I lost in about a 3-month period. Luckily, the PPP loan covered most of that. But when Airbnb set up that host fund, that $250 million, I think I got like maybe $30 back.
I got it, yeah, and then I got lucky because I got like $300 back,
300? How much
Yeah.
money did you lose though?
13,000. Yeah,
We all got.
yeah, we got hit, yeah. But
Okay.
the reason why I said I lost 13,000 because I lost those, but like again, it was really early. I was God sent for me because they immediately came back. Like new bookings were just back to back. There's this guy who was running away from New York, wound up staying at 1 month at the apartment. So I was like, okay, I'm not hurting, that bad. Wasn't making the money that I'm making now, but it wasn't bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about international travelers? You got hurt a lot?
I got stuck with some international travelers too because they weren't allowed to travel.
You
So
had
yeah.
that come back, you guys?
Yes, I have now a lot of international
We
travelers.
lost all of them. They're coming back. I don't know if they're still allowed back in the country, I guess they are.
Right, well, for the house, I haven't yet, but I have a small unit, like a 1-bedroom thing.
No.
And I guess because that was a little bit cheaper, they've been booked in that one, again, because of, COVID has hurt some pockets, so yeah.
Don't look up to that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, you're very welcome, and we're gonna take one last question, unless you guys have any more questions here. Let's see. Okay, so from Francine, what insurance do you use to protect your home, commercial versus home insurance use? There's actually some majority of home insurance companies, they're offering a short-term rental program now. So I would just inquire with your home insurance and tell them what you plan to do. They might spike the premium, but it's priceless, right? Peace of mind is more often than not priceless. So that's definitely what I would do. There's one that I want to say is Priority. They were emailing me. So they'll come up in Google if you search on Priority Insurance, and they have their own tailored short-term rental program. I don't know if you guys have any recommendations on as far as that, or if you use commercial insurance.
I use regular rentals insurance.
Okay.
Just because when I do bring people through Instagram and YouTube,
Yeah.
I wanted to have protection through them. But through the regular Airbnb system, I just use them.
Right.
I really haven't had any issues with people. So I've really never had to use the claim system or any insurance. I've never had issues. So yeah, I have a pretty efficient system when it comes to
Awesome.
claims.
To insurance and yeah. You tend not to use them, but you want them to be there in case you do need.
No, for sure. Yeah. I think if you're not there in the property, it's definitely more useful. But for me, I'm able to deter a lot of the stuff that could happen since I'm there.
Right.
I'm specifically there. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
I don't know if this is a loaded question, but I'm getting started in Airbnb. I purchased property and I'm in the process of getting into this world, which I've had great advice and help from many friends that do it. But when it comes to licensing and like the regulating entities, like the city, like is there like a couple sentences crash course that I can get a better idea? Like if you live in the property, you need a state license, county license, city license. You don't. What's the
It's not as
overall?
difficult as you think it is.
Yeah.
And he can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I ask him every day. And then I revert back to it.
But then when you don't live in the property, obviously the idea is to, eventually get started with the first one and then grow it to a bunch of properties. But then I don't live in a bunch of properties, so then how does it work?
So it's real easy, and
Is there a city
it may
that is
be
like
different
town?
in the Smokies, but in the state of Florida, it's I actually have a presentation on this, but I'll make it real simple. It's 4 layers, and it starts with the state, and then it goes with the
City.
city. So county or state. Sorry, state, county or city. So if the city is unincorporated, then that means that it's the county. It falls on the county. If it's incorporated, that means that a city applies. So you would follow the rules of the county if it's unincorporated, and if it's incorporated, you look for the rules of the city, and they'll give you like the entire process. But it's pretty much, that's the basis, that's the order of it, because all cities, all counties change their requirements. Some are more simple, some are more tedious, and it just varies. Some don't even allow it, right? But the state is important because all of the cities are going to require the state licensing. And then lastly would be an association, if you have an association. But before you even start, I would check with the association, because if they let it, it's not worth the headache. It's just not. So that's
He's got
real sweet,
Okay.
sweet and simple. Okay, so I think we're all set. Great, valuable content today. Thank you so much, Avery, for spending your Wednesday evening with us. Want to give you a last clap, please. Round of applause for Avery.
Thank you guys for having me.
That's the beauty of it. I mean, this is the positive side of what we're going through. We're able to have speakers from like way somewhere else that we wouldn't usually have, because we usually have the speakers in person. So, that's the bright side. Thanks again, Avery. And